now that we got all the seats in place, and that worked out just outstanding how nice all that fits. I've got your shifter modified, and you can see I'm gonna bring it back. Before it was mounted up on this, real close to that in that console, and that was okay with that, but it's crowding all my air conditioner stuff, and it just is big and gaudy, and then you have that handle on there. So I'm gonna bring it back. I've got enough room in the floor of the Explorer to drop it down a little bit, and get it down in here between the seats. I think I'm going to be able to make your fresh air system work. I've got it mounted on top of the factory Explorer and all that fresh air system. Build me a little duct work, shoot it out that corner over there, and I think that'll work. Your brake pedal's in place. That gives us all of our brake light switches and all the factory Explorer stuff, as well as the throttle. Fly-by-wire throttle will plug right in, bolts to the firewall exactly where it was. I've got the firewall pad that we'll put underneath that from the Explorer. So the blend is doing really, really well. All right, now I've got in here and I've moved this seat around and set in there with the door shut, and it feels extremely comfortable right here. I've located the distance of where it rode originally in the Explorer. I could tell that on the sleeve down there. So I'll put it back to that point, raise it back up level. I know this had to be level, and that's a pretty good spot right there. It's out a little bit farther than I wanted it as in relationship to the dash, but it starts getting farther away from you as the driver. So I kind of split the difference in those two, and I moved it in just a little bit more. So I think it's a really good spot there. But now I've got to build a structure in here that will hold this. So to do so, I need to put some framing in here. So what I'm going to do is go in behind here. I've got a piece of metal. And I'm going to actually put one on each side that's going to tie this together, and I'll have to weld it all together and then plug weld it. And then once I get this in place, this will build me a structure, and I'll come off the top of the firewall off the Explorer and come up and over, and then come up the brake pedal and up and over, and then that's going to give me a cage to secure this to, because getting in and out, and there's going to be a lot of force out here, and I've got to make this pretty strong, and as it stands, that's not going to hold it. So I'm going to take most of all this back out, build this little bit of a cage, and then once I get the cage in place and I can start securing it to this, I'll put this bar in a point to where it's higher than I'd ever want this to be, and then I can start doing shims and actually try to start putting the dash in, because I'm going to start cutting the dash out, and I want to keep all of it down to a minimum. So it will allow me to dial this in relationship to this, in relationship to the instrument cluster, and then get them all in place. I can tie it all together and then weld it solid. So let's start making some brackets. I'll try to blow through this pretty quick getting this frame in here. And what I'm going to do is just build a little A-frame in here. I've got this, this is the angle I used when we had this jigged up, the body jigged up. I saved all these pieces, and I'll just clean this up and reuse it, cut it down 26 inches, and weld these together. And that'll give me the top part of my little A-frame, and then I'll tie it in on both sides, tie it in the middle, and build off of that for your structure over there, and it'll be hid out of the way and be there forever. And it won't affect anything else. So yeah, I'm going to get these cleaned up and reuse them, saves having to go chase down some more parts, and then get them welded together and then get them plug welded up in there. I've put a real nice frame inside there and plug welded it to this dash, so it's starting to get strong. I got to make it strong enough to be able to hang this entire column off the bottom of it and support you moving around the seat and all that. So, but I'm gonna start out down in here. So what I first did, this used to be mounted in there to the firewall, and then it had a mount in here up against the dash. So I'm gonna put that back in there. So I've got to come in here. I made you this I-beam, or a T-beam, I guess it would be. And it's going to be extremely strong, and that'll bolt onto that. So when you push that pedal, it's going to be super strong, because you don't want, you can really push hard with your feet, especially if somebody stops in front of you or whatever. So I've got to make this super strong. So I've tied this bar in down to the original Woodie framing in there. Then where this lands on the firewall, I fabricated another plate that this will go on. So I'll weld that in place. And then weld this in place, and I'll be super strong for this, and then I can kind of use that cage to help build off onto your steering column frame. And once I get all that in, that's going to be great. I'll be glad to get all that done. and then I'll start working on your fresh air over there, and then we'll just work our way out up here. I'll show you what I'm doing under here. Now I've got that post I fabricated in place right here, and that's going to be extremely strong. So now it's pushing against the firewall and pulling down on this, and then I've built your frame in here and I've tied it in back here. Now I'll start building the structure for your steering column, and I can use this other stuff to build off of, and it'll start making a cage, and it'll be extremely strong to hold that steering column. And then keep in mind your steering column has all the factory breakaway stuff in case you had a head-on collision with this shear place and in the structure of the mount of the column itself. So a lot of good safety features in here. You can see how nice that just bolted right back in its original place. I'm going to try to get that right back in its original place. This will be in its original place. We can plug all that stuff back in, and this is going to be sweet. But yeah, this is going to be extremely strong. I'm fixing to weld it in. Did another plate on top of this plate. It'll be there forever. Use the same size metric bolts to hold it on as I do this down here. So I'm doing it like I do my own. I want to show you right here on this putting this column in. This is some of the most mind-boggling work. Because sometimes I get in here and I just study and move and study. I have to put the dash in here and take it out and mock all this stuff. I have to have the column, the steering shaft itself has got a certain path it's got to go in. It's got to line up with the seat. It's got to be able to tilt. There's so many things involved with where the location of this goes. And then the location I put it in, there's a huge amount of work around it. So the higher I get it up, the better it kind of works for the Explorer setup, but the worse it is for the dash and the instrument cluster. The lower I get it, the worse for the Explorer, but the better for the Woodie and the dash, the instrument cluster. So I have to try to plan out every scenario to know, to kind of get an idea how much work's going to be involved, and try to pick the path of least resistance. And there'll be a fine line in between the two. I try to blend that line together so that that the Explorer is going to work out real nice and drive and be safe in the way it needs to be. And then the dash, what goes on with the dash. Now I have full range to move anything where I want to put it right now, but I don't want to make anything look silly. So it has to be a tasteful blend as well. So everything has to work, and then it all has to look right. And the decisions I'm making, and look what it looks like in here, have to be well blended when it's completely done and everything's in here. And it's hard to foresee some of that stuff. So I just try to whittle down the areas I know that I have, and then work my way out. So I've actually raised the dash just maybe a half an inch and turned it a half an inch. And that's putting the bottom of the dash and the bezel right in this bend so that this tilt is still going to work. Right now I have the tilt all the way up, and I have good clearance right here. Most of the time in your car, if you're driving your car and you check, usually that steering wheel is really close to your hands down. I mean, if you put your hands between your legs, maybe that close to your legs. So, and I've got that up higher than that, so that's telling me that I'll be able to tilt it up pretty high and be able to tilt it down and be able to use that. All right, now I'm trying not to waste any time. I've got almost a year, less than a year now, to get this finished for SEMA next year, but there is a huge amount of work to do here. And so to try not to waste time, I went ahead and started doing this column before I completely finished up my wiper system, because I had to order some little heim joints to make the rods, because I'm going to have to change everything. Everything that was in there was kind of vacuum operated. It was vacuum operated. And the pivots and the stuff are old and rusty, so I'm going to change out these arms to these. I bought some threaded rod, and all they had locally was a short piece. So I'm just going to weld in a piece of this in my rods, and then they'll be adjustable. Right now I'm just working on how originally they opposed, apparently, and it's going to take a little work to make that happen because of the way the wiper on the Explorer worked. It went around and it pulled both arms in sync, where this one they opposed, so it just threw them back and forth, which was worked back in the day. But if the old motors didn't have much vacuum, and that's vacuum control, and every time you want to peel, your wipers didn't work. But this way, with the Explorer stuff, you're going to have all the speeds and the squirter and the delay and all that. So now that these have come in, that I've been waiting on, I'm going to stop on this. I've got a really good location. I've got this where it's about ready to tack weld in place, and then this column will be on this piece, which will be adjustable in and out, and adjustable up and down. So as I fit more stuff, I can move this a little bit to get in its sweet spot. But it feels real good right here. Pedal feels good, I like this spot. So now I'm going to, let's pull off this and do this wiper system. I put the supports in there, and they were in the way of the head of the wiper here, and I had to cut some of that out, and that was a pain in the butt. I'll go back and put some structure back in there, but basically had to split that bar in two in both spots, and it just barely touched, but it touched just in a worse spot. So I got that cut out and got those back in place, and now I'm going to start fabricating and design this wiper system.